Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the year. I know it's before a holiday weekend. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the year. I know it's a holiday weekend. And so I'm so thankful for those of you who came out tonight, despite it's the beginning, it's Friday Eve and it's Labor Day weekend eve, and you're still here. So we really want to thank you for joining us. I want to remind you that we meet the first Thursday of the month, and it is always the same link. So once you've registered one time, you're completely registered for the entire year. And we hope to see you come multiple times and bring a person with you and let them know about the things we're talking about and discussing in Ward 7 regarding education. With that, I want to move to our agenda. It is back to school. Pretty much all children in the district are back in session. And so we really want to take time to thank our teachers, our administrators, our custodians, our school support personnel. We're looking forward to a great year. We know that you have a lot on your plate, and we at Ward 7 Ed Council are here to support you. And we want to definitely support our young people as they come back into fully back in school, in person, and hopefully with no disruptions going forward. With that being said, I want to move into our agenda. We're going to, and I made a mistake and said Manla, who is no longer our treasurer, he's actually our vice chair. Devin Myers is actually our treasurer this year. Between one or the two of them, they're just going to give a real brief update of where we are financially, trying to get our EIN and situation back under control. So that'll be a short update from them. Then we'll move into our update. We always have an update from our esteemed state board member, Eboni-Rose Thompson. She gives us updates on what's going on that side of the educational house. Then we'll move into a conversation with Deputy Mayor of Education, Paul Kihn. We'll introduce some of the new Ward 7 principals, and we'll make announcements, and we will adjourn on time at 8 p.m. So again, thank you so much for being here. I want to bring on either Manla or Devin. Manla Deskins or Devin Myers. I combined you guys' names. I was like, okay.
It's okay.
For one of you to kind of give us an update of where we are. I will say in advance, if you know anything, trying to get through to the IRS right now is a near miracle, but they will take it from there and give you an update.
Yeah,
okay.
Deb, did you want me to give some background and then you can take over and tell us where we are?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, so first, everybody, please excuse me. It's soccer season, so you may hear some thumps in the background. You know, I'm just fathering. So yes, okay. So I was the treasurer in the last cycle. And so just to give you some background of where it was, we need to get our letter from the IRS. And in order to get that letter with the EIN number on it, we needed to give some information that would allow them to verify that I am the person they should give that letter to. So that will be like either the phone number, the address, or the name of the person who originally applied for that EIN number through the IRS. And we have not been able to secure that because that was some time ago. We did a whole lot to try to find it. And so where we left off is if we wanted to open our own bank account, we would need to reach out to the IRS and they would need to send us some information that we would then fill out with the current board members and then send back. And that's kind of a process. And I wasn't able to do that because by the time January hit, the IRS basically shut down to where like that number was just completely unavailable. And so we were trying to figure out what the way around that was before the summer session. And so with that, I'm gonna move it to Dev, who is the current treasurer.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Dev Myers, and I'm sorry I do not have my camera on because I'm out here in the community doing work. But did want to discuss about the treasury report, kind of like what Monila was saying. Like we've been trying to get our IRS letter reissued so we can carry out our financial responsibilities. But due to the IRS phone number being down indefinitely, I recommend that we should move forward with securing a fiscal sponsor. And for those who don't know what a fiscal sponsor is, in a nutshell, it's a nonprofit organization that provides oversight, financial management, and other administrative services, and that can vary. So the why is that it will allow us to move forward with the Ed Council business while we wait on the IRS. And I just want to note that the board needs to discuss this and put a vote to this. So the public will be aware of this decision in the coming weeks. But like I said, we're going to have to discuss it with the board and vote on it. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I won't weigh in on my position because I don't want to influence anybody, but yeah, so we can move on and transact business. We probably need to do that as we come up and try and figure some stuff out. So thank you both of you for giving both the long history and the current state. We appreciate it.
No problem.
With that, we want to move into updates from our State Board of Education rep, Eboni-Rose Thompson. You want to take it from here and share what's going on?
Yeah, good evening. A lot's going on because it's back to school season. So a few things that I want to make sure I tell you and you don't forget. We never really went on recess like the ANCs do, but we are fully back in session. So our first working session is this coming Wednesday. We do meet in person for the working sessions, but we stream them. So if people want to tune in, you can tune in. A couple things are going to be important at that working session. So one, NAEP results came out today. If you're like, what is she talking about? NAEP, it's essentially how we track as a nation progress, and we track it at certain grade level intervals. So it is no surprise to me that when we are comparing the NAEP scores from this most recent school year to a few years ago, we have, gone in the opposite direction because we all lived through a pandemic. So NAEP scores are out. Park scores, which are DC specific, will be out tomorrow. And so we will be getting updates from OSSE around what the scores are, what the plan is, what it all means. And we will be having that discussion on Wednesday. That's the big ticket item for our Wednesday meeting. We will also have a presentation. So many of you, thank you for filling out the survey and participating in focus groups if you were invited to join focus groups around our board governance work. But we'll be sharing out some of just an overview of what people said. We are not at the stage where we have made recommendations as a board. We want to first just share with all of the members and the public what we've heard. I say that to you because we will be doing another round of feedback because you gotta at least like listen to people and then say like, all right, did I hear you correctly? We're gonna go into our did I hear you correctly stage of listening pretty soon, beginning with our fall engagement sessions. Our fall engagement session, which will cover all of our board work, but we'll have a session on board governance that will happen at Eastern High School on Saturday, September 24th. I believe the time, I believe it is going to be from 10 to 2, but I'm going to double check that and make sure I send the flyer your way. It is circulating on our social. And if I get it together before the end of the meeting, I will also put that in the chat. Please come see us at the fall engagement sessions. We do have food. We do have childcare, more importantly, and we will be at Eastern in Ward 7, which both has parking and is transit accessible. So come see me if you want to talk about any of the things related to the SBOE. So that's the second important thing I wanted to tell you. And then just third, back to school is like a whole season. So I'll look forward to seeing you at back to school nights. I got to see Principal Edwards earlier today at the ribbon cutting. So congratulations, Principal Edwards and the Randall Highland community. But if there are other events we should know or care about, let me know. I'm always happy to share things that are happening in the Ward 7 community. I'm going to continue to put things in the newsletter. I'm going to continue to put things on social media. I want to come see you. I actually have things to take with me to back to school nights this year, not just our state board swag, but I'll put this out soon, but we got some nationals tickets. So we'll be having like a Ward 7 education night at the end of September. And that'll be free. And so I'll be giving those away at back to school nights. But I'll be here for the duration of the meeting. Let me know if you have any questions about the board's work. Those are the big things that have happened or we should be paying attention to going into the fall. I'm also happy to answer any questions around like attendance or any of the framework stuff that's happened over the summer. But that's my update.
Two
Dr.
things.
Kihn, tell me if I missed anything.
Well, not that you want to miss anything. I just wanted, you mentioned a grand opening. Everybody may not know what grand opening you're really talking about. So could you talk a little bit more about it? And Principal Christie, if you want to say, Principal Edwards, if you want to say anything about the grand opening today, so people know what grand opening we're actually talking about. Either one of you.
Yeah, so I don't want to steal Principal Edwards' shine. But we have, and so I'll give the things you should be looking out for version, and then let her talk about what's going to be like actually happening because she knows it better than anybody else. So we actually have two new facilities in Ward 7. One is the old Randall Highlands building, which is really the new Randall Highlands building because it is a early childhood education center. And the ribbon cutting for that was today. It is also the first day of pre-K, both 3 and 4 in DC. So if you're like me, you probably had a bunch of wonderful photos on your timeline of our littlest people going back to school. The other new school we have is Smothers. And so if you have driven down 44th Street, so like if you live in Southern, I guess that's Southern or like Central Ward 7 and you're trying to get to 295 off of Nettie Helen, you probably came down 44th Street and you probably saw a whole bunch of construction. That's Smothers. They have been in the Kenilworth building for the past couple years. So now they're out, they're in their new school. Councilmember Gray and I will be on school visits. So we'll send pictures of like the new facilities when we go on those visits soon. But Smothers has moved back home to like Smothers proper and Aton, well, what we formerly knew as Aton, which is now Lorraine Whitlock Elementary, is actually in Kenilworth because it is being renovated and that is on 49th Street. So I'll let Principal Edwards talk about her program because it is hers. She is the leader and it was just wonderful to join her today.
Good afternoon. So yes, we were able to open up our new early learning center today. And we actually had about 60 of our scholars report to school today with their families. We have 6 classes that are currently in operation right now with 8 classes available. We're projected to have around 112 students. That's including filling our first ever ELS classroom in the pre-K setting. And then also at the bottom of the school, we will also have vendors there that will have our birth to 2 classes there. We do not have our vendors in place yet. They're scheduled to come sometime next year.
Excellent. We're very excited to hear about the opening of the building and the Early Childhood Center. So it is beautiful, the design. So I am really excited to one day actually see it physically. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone have any questions for our state rep?
Oh, can I say one more thing that I forgot? That
Please.
you all should absolutely know about. We have launched a special education hub. I know many of you come to me. I see Ms. Carr on the line talking about how we need to do better with special education issues. The special education hub is a partnership with OSSI, but it's awesome. Like it literally is a resource hub that should cover issues citywide. And as we work with the Office of the Student Advocate and the Ombudsman to get back to our full glory of physical spaces, we will actually have almost like a parent center for that purpose. So that's coming soon, but the resources are available virtually now. And the SPED Hub launched, goodness, my sense of time has left me, but this is like new, like within the last month. So I'll put the link to the chat as well. Please, please, please use that resource and tell other parents about it.
Well, you're putting that in the link. If you're here, if you could just put your name and maybe your affiliation, and it would be really great if you even went so far as to even share like your best moment of the summer, because summer is over. And so let's relish in the fact, well, it's not technically over, but it's over. And so let's just relish in the last moments of summer and hear about some of the wonderful things that each of you did. So if you would like to do any of that, we would greatly appreciate your name, your affiliation, and maybe one great thing or great memory from this summer. Okay, thank you all. Thank you for that. We appreciate those updates. I saw the deputy mayor here. So,
good evening, Dr. Dean.
Okay, let me get you to pin to the top so that everyone can see you. Hold on one second, please. There you are. I found you. Okay. Okay, there you are. Okay, good. Okay. With that being said, I want to introduce most of you who attend our meetings regularly and who are highly engaged in the education community already know our Deputy Mayor of Education, Paul Kihn. He's been here with us before. He attends multiple meetings. We wanted to start off the year inviting the Deputy Mayor because there's a lot going on this year, a lot of initiatives, a lot of goals this year and even the beginning of next year. So we wanted to give him this time to come to us right out the gate early in the year, share what he's hoping to accomplish this year, share what the calendar looks like for this year, and then to open it up for some questions that our community may have regarding what's going on education-wide in Ward 7 and across the city. So thank you. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to open it up to you just to start with some updates. And then we'll move into more of a dialogue, but let's start there. So thank you for coming.
Dr. Dean, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. I actually started my day earlier with Principal Edwards and Representative Thompson at the really wonderful opening of the fabulous new childcare space, early childhood space. So it's such a great addition, and it was lovely to see you there, Representative Thompson, Principal Edwards, and all the great work you're going to do. And I'm really happy to be here tonight. I thought I would spend about 5 or 10 minutes, Dr. Dean, at your invitation, just sharing some of the priorities and initiatives going on for this year. I'll start with a kind of higher level framing, and then I'll get into some specific areas where I think we can continue to work really closely together on some very big projects that my office is going to be undertaking. So if that sounds good, I'll do that, and then we'll have most of our time together, I think, for a nice discussion. I wanted to begin by just sharing overall, my office and the education cluster in general continue to be focused on our recovery work. We've always talked about this in 3 primary areas, including stabilizing and strengthening the early childhood sector, which we're doing in a number of important ways. The second is, of course, to accelerate our learning in the K-12 space, and that includes not just the academic and learning interventions that are so vital at this time, but also things like re-engaging students, keeping our young people safe, which after yesterday morning, I think is top of mind once again for all of us, and is very, very urgent that we continue to focus on that. So we can talk here a bit about that. It includes our mental health supports work and investments to ensure we've got clinicians in the schools where they belong, continue to work with school communities on what needs are. It also includes our reimagining high school work, which is our focus on secondary pathways to make sure every high school student has got a really interesting and engaging path through high school, through graduation and beyond. This is our Advanced Technical Center, which we're standing up this year for the first time. It's our credit-bearing internship program during the school year for our high school students and so on. Our Accelerate K-12 Learning also is our focus work on teachers. We cannot be grateful enough for our teachers and educators and school leaders, and we've got to continue to find new ways, in addition to the kinds of housing incentives that we're beginning to put in place and other things to recognize and value them. This is also a place where we focus on caring for our families, as we continue to hear this is of great concern and need amongst our school communities. The third area that we focus on in recovery, which we don't talk a lot about in these meetings, but I also have workforce within my cluster. So we're also very focused on driving an inclusive jobs recovery. So strengthening job seeker and employer connections and driving a surge in high impact credentialing through things like our DC Futures program, which is providing essentially free college for lots and lots of young people around the city at our local universities, including UDC, Trinity, and Catholic. So those are some of the high-level programs that we're focused on. I wanted to spend a moment, given Representative Thompson did share that we got some national NAEP results today, and tomorrow we'll see our local standardized test results, the PARC results, which clearly just show a partial picture of what's happened, but we will see, as we'd anticipated, of course, some declines across the board. So we know now, and I think everyone in this meeting, all of you who are so interested in education matters, fully understand that the pandemic has had some really serious and lasting impact that we have to continue to address really urgently. And so one of the big goals for my office and our cluster over the course of this year is to continue to focus on making the right kinds of investments in our learning and our learning acceleration. And we've invested, I think it's fair to say, over the few recovery years, something close to $1 billion in interventions in schools to help support us in recovery. Most of that are the ESSER dollars that have flown directly to schools, DCPS and charter schools, that they've used to hire additional staff and supports and tutors and things of that nature. And a number of it is work that my office has been helping to support and drive that helps to supplement that. So, you know, we had almost 2,500 students engaged in high impact tutoring that was funded out of OSSI this year. We launched the Family Resource Center in partnership with the State Board of Education, as Representative Thompson was talking about. We've helped DCPS and charter schools focus on the science of reading through professional development for teachers. And then we've also looked to extend learning, and we'll continue to do this in non-traditional settings. We had 1,500 students in our boost camps through DPR, summer recreation camps that had some academic component. We had 4,000 students in our summer youth employment program, Earn and Learn, where we had those 4,000 students actually attending Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment at their schools. So they got their job embedded learning there, but also did some academic acceleration and credit recovery work. We've continued to invest in our Safe Blocks program as part of the citywide supplements. We have our DC School Connect program, which is now in 31 schools, I believe, where we're providing specific targeted transportation support to families that the schools help us identify as really needing that for reasons of safety and others. So those are some of the ways that we're continuing to support recovery specifically. And then what I thought I'd do, Dr. Dean, is just conclude as we think about all of those really vital interventions that we're all working on helping to coordinate, I thought I would conclude by just naming some of the very big projects that my office is going to focus on at the tail end of this calendar year and throughout 2023, which will in some ways shape the recovery work, but will also set the stage in some very important ways for the strategic direction of the city's education and schooling overall. And I'll name 4 big studies that my office is helping to coordinate. And this is where I think Dr. Dean and others will have a chance to work very closely together, because these are all just getting started over the next several months. The first is, as we do every 2 years, we're doing our UPSFF working group. And here we're convening technical experts on budgets and LEA leaders to look at some specific areas of the UPSFF. We did this last time, and we looked closely at the at-risk weights, and that's where we determined that we should add a supplement for high school students who are overage. But we're convening this group in the coming months. Next year, we have 3 big studies that have been funded through the mayor's and the council's budget. The first is we have to redo a new master facilities plan. And the way to think about this study is we have got to take a hard look at all of our school facilities, all of our public school facilities across the city, and ensure that they are all being best and efficiently utilized. We want to make sure that students through this study, we have recommendations to ensure that students are enrolled in modern state-of-the-art facilities, and also that students' daily experiences are in a well-maintained facility. So the master facilities plan really focuses on our facilities footprint and looks at questions about the best use of our school buildings and ensuring that they're in really good condition. The second of these big studies will be the boundary and an attendance zone study that we'll also be doing next year. And here people think of this as sort of the technical work of figuring out to make sure that our attendance zones are well balanced and that we don't have schools that are either overutilized or underutilized. And that will certainly be part of this, especially in the areas of the city where we know we're planning potentially for new schools, or we've got overcrowding or undercrowding. At the same time, however, this study is inviting us to think about equitable access among district students to high quality public schools through the assignment and enrollment policies. In other words, there's a component of this which is not just about the geographic boundaries of zone schools, but also how do we ensure we're providing really good access for families to different options and sets of schools through the feeder patterns, for example, that they have access to. And currently there are a number of places in the city that, for example, have dual feeder rights, or in some cases feeder rights to 3 different schools. And in other cases, we have a straightforward feeder pattern. And this study requires us with communities to determine whether or not what we're doing now is the right thing, or whether we need to adjust some of those policies. And lastly, I'll name the adequacy study, which of course got a lot of traction through the budget process last year. And here we're being asked to just take a look at the funding formula to make sure that it equitably distributes funds to LEAs based on student needs and the student population. And we're also, I think, going to use this opportunity to ensure that there's sustainable strategy for year-over-year cost growth in that UPSFF formula and the way that we fund schools, and to ensure that we've got some really good guiding principles about how the UPSFF is used and can be used relative to other funding sources such as federal funding. I mean, I think the thing as a city we're all very eager to move beyond is every year relitigating what the weights are to ensure that we're simply trying to maximize the amount of dollars that we're able to get to students, in particular those with the highest need. So we've got those very big projects on the horizon, each of which has a very strong community engagement component. I'm hoping Dr. Dean will be able to come back out here relatively regularly to talk with this group about each of those, and that folks here will participate in the various fora that will be established to sort of work on those. But I'll pause here and say, given kind of a high level overview of our big bodies of work, our focus on recovery, our learning interventions, and then these larger kind of longer term view projects that are coming up?
Well, thank you for that overview. We'll start off with some kind of smaller questions, and then we'll get into some meatier issues, because I'm going to hold off on the conversation about school boundaries and master facilities plan, only to say right now that, Ward 7 has some residual trauma from the last time it happened. So we want to definitely be involved in that, in terms of, we have some schools that were impacted by it. So I want to hold off to that conversation, because that conversation can get fairly emotional. I want to start with what's in our chat. We have a question from Allison Kreiner Brown, who says, do you have any sense, Deputy Mayor, how rapid inflation can and will be addressed in the future, in the upcoming years, through the UPSFF?
I think that's such an important question, and it's one that is really top of mind for me as I think about how do we scope out the adequacy study, because it's one thing to say, this is what we think we need today, but if we do see the kind of, inflation that some economists are predicting, and if we end up in some kind of recessionary environment, which is still not impossible, we might see a situation where the city budget overall is actually declining. I mean, that's what happens in recessions, when you see the sort of downward business cycles. And I think we all have to be very careful to be planning for those potential things. And I think we can use the study we are going to do on the UPSF, the big study next year, to consider how can we ensure some kind of sustainable funding for schools in the context of rapid inflation, where things cost more, people need more money, and you may have a situation where the actual city budget is declining. So there's a lot of tension in there that we have to basically get ready for and be prepared for. And I think that that's something that we can do within the context of that work with, the technical experts and economists.
Okay, thank you. Now, we were told no school, no shots, but maybe that's not exactly the case. So can you clarify where we stand on that policy right now? What's real? What has changed? Have timelines shift? Just give us an update on that, please.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to. Yes, so this year we are, as we've been saying now for a while, we are absolutely going to enforce the no shots, no school policy. The reason being that our routine pediatric immunization rates, at least the records we have of them, had dropped to a level of around 70%, where DC Health was getting extremely concerned about the potential safety and well-being of our school communities outside of the context of COVID, just in the context of preventable pediatric disease. And so we are indeed going to be enforcing this. We have published now the specific timetable for enforcement, which includes when the official notification letters will go to families who we do not yet have records for. And I put it that way because some families indeed have gotten the shots, but haven't yet submitted the paperwork. But we've got the official notification timeline, and then when the first day is that students will be excluded from school. We're starting with elementary schools, and so the notification letters will go out later in September, and the exclusion date is in early October. We're then shifting to middle and high schools, where the notifications will go out in October, and the exclusion dates are in early November. We also, as part of this, indicated that we do intend to comply with the council legislation around enforcing COVID vaccination, but we have decided for several reasons, which I can go into, that will be best done later. And what I mean by later is after the routine pediatric immunization. So those notification letters will go out for all grades in late November, I believe. But the first date of exclusion will be after the holidays, which is early January. So that's how we sequenced it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, because I think some people thought no shots, no school was specific to COVID, and it's really a broader initiative. And so then the COVID date got moved, and so it's unclear. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify that for everyone. I'm going to go back to the chat and ask some questions. Should we expect the summer learning acceleration efforts to continue for several years, specifically the paid opportunities for credit recovery and expanded access to summer school and other academic programs?
Yes, we should. And in our fiscal 23 budget, which includes next summer, we have sustained the Earn and Learn program in the Marionberry Youth Employment Program. And the reports that I got from this year is that it went extremely well. Students did actually get a lot of credits. I love to hear from folks here if you heard differently or had some experience of it. But so we are intending to sustain that program. And then the learning acceleration, for example, the DCPS and many of the public charter schools did. I know the chancellor has every intention of continuing that next summer with the learning academies. And of course, the charter schools that I've talked to who had good experience this summer are planning to do that as well. Schools are very, very, very focused on learning recovery.
Okay, thank you. There's a question around, will there be added language immersion programs in Ward 7? I want you to answer that question specifically, but I also want you to give us a better understanding of the scope of the conversation in both the school boundary and master facilities plans. Does that include an inventory of programming? What's there, what's not? How does that match to the facilities? How does that impact school boundaries? Are we going to make sure that all types of programming are represented in each feeder pattern? So tell me, is that separate? Is that a part of it? What's the connection where there are no connections?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the question. It's extremely important. So in the master facility plan, there will be a kind of a catalog or inventory of what programs sit in what buildings. And that's going to be the place where we're able to determine from a kind of physical infrastructure place what programmatically lives in these various geographies and how far, for example, students are having to travel from where they live to get to those specific program types. So that will happen in the master facility plan. The boundary and feeder pattern study will then take that foundational information and will ask the question, do all students have equitable access to these various programs and program types? So I think that will directly address the question, Dr. Dean, you're asking, which is, for example, will there be dual immersion programs, or will we recommend to increase the number of them in different parts of the city? And those are the kinds of recommendations that will come out of the feeder pattern and boundary study, because that's where we're looking at access to different kinds of programs and program types.
Okay, thank you. So just for the record, Ward 7 Ed Council, Ward 7 in general, definitely wants to be deeply involved in those conversations and well represented on any community discussions and boards and anything like that, or committees and task force. So just know we are ready to respond to that conversation because it's going to be incredibly important. Prince George's County kind of sent out a letter saying, hey, be patient with us. We have staffing shortages. We're trying to figure some things out. What is the situation for teacher vacancies in the district? Many schools appear to be starting off the year with significant teacher vacancies. What is being done to address that issue, to not overburden certain schools, to not make sure that students don't have certain access to certain programming and certain curriculum, and to make sure that we will end up with a year that can make up from some of those losses that we experience as accounted for through NAEP and PARC that we're going to hear about over the next few weeks. What's the status of that? And what's the plan to help support that?
So right now, DCPS has a slightly higher vacancy rate than it usually does historically. So I would say it is, we're probably a handful of teachers, maybe it's 10 or 20 more vacancies than we have seen at a similar time in prior school years. And I know DCPS has assigned central office staff out to schools to cover some of those vacancies, and they continue to hire. In terms of school-based staff, there were a number of paraprofessional vacancies, and DCPS is right now working quickly through its pool to ensure that the schools that have those vacancies have paraprofessionals for those roles, and that's apparently working very quickly. Every day there are many more in schools. And then for the teachers, there's a pool. I don't know, to be honest, if the pool is big enough to fill all of the vacancy, but there is a pool that principals are hiring from, and DCPS continues to do, all that it has been doing in terms of its recruitment strategies to just continue to expand that. I've had a conversation with some of my charter school colleagues, about a dozen of them, pretty much to a person. They would say something similar, where they feel like they're pretty well covered with teachers, apart from some teachers in specialist areas, like, for example, special education teachers, where that particular group felt like they were experiencing a little more hiring difficulty was in some of the support staff. So, for example, security guards or some of the lunch personnel. So they were talking about those challenges. Those are not things DCPS has experienced. The security staff, I believe, is fully filled for DCPS, but there may be some differences there. So I think it's fair to say overall, I mean, this is at least my view of it, that it's not, that there is it's been a little bit more difficult to hire teachers this year than it has in years past. I would not yet use terms like, hiring crisis or teacher recruitment crisis, because in general, it seems at least like we're on a path to getting all these positions filled close to when we would have in prior years. But it is clearly something that we've got to pay very close attention to over this year as we look to the future. And if this is any indication of a trend, then we're going to want to make sure that we're doing all we can to keep our great teachers, but also to make sure we have really attractive offerings for folks who are considering becoming teachers in DC.
Thank you for that. I hope that there will be a way to just keep the public informed about which schools are having the greatest impact, which kinds of positions, especially what we're going to do for our students with special needs, if we're having shortages there, how we're going to support it. If the more information around that over this year, because I know everyone is deeply concerned about this issue, we hope that your office and both the Charter School Board and DCPS will share a lot of that information, because it will go a long way to building trust with the community, to really have a sense of what's going on and what actions are being taken to address that. I also, there's some more questions, I'm trying to keep up. There was a new dyslexia law that was passed. Can you talk about what role your office is do you know about the law? I'm assuming you do. And what role your office is going to play in a successful implementation of the law?
Yeah, so it's an important piece of legislation. We tracked it closely. We worked a little bit with council on it. And at this point, our role is just to watch and work with DCPS as it undertakes its own implementation. There were some specific challenges, I think, last year around implementing the law to its fullest extent, which I know the chancellor was working on. And so that's really the role that we have, which is to try to figure out how to make sure we're supporting DCPS to get to a fuller implementation.
Does this law only apply to DCPS schools, or does it apply to charter schools? And, dyslexia is such a complex issue. So really, and so many students have reading difficulties of different kinds. So this is really important. It sets the trajectory of their K-12 career, their earnings, their quality of life. There's so much behind that issue. So just want to know more about how you're going to be checking in and keeping abreast of what's going on with that law and its implementation. And could you even explain what did the law call for to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the reading work, so the law, as I recall the details of it, really focused on professional development for teachers to ensure they were equipped to deal with students and work with students who were representing as dyslexic. And we are, and I know I am, and my office is with DCPS and with OSSI in lots of ways, very focused, and I see Eboni-Rose also still at the top of my screen, along with the State Board of Education, very focused on early literacy, including dyslexia. And there is going to be a task force that is stood up across the city that we will be collaborating with and working on. OSSI has put in place some professional development opportunities directly for LEAs to support their work in the so-called science of reading, which is the term of art that we're all using now. DCPS has invested quite heavily in training all of its early educators in the so-called science of reading and the importance of phonemic awareness. They actually this past year saw some very good progress on their DIBELS assessments in the first year out of the pandemic, because I think as a direct result of some of that work. And so there is really a big emphasis, I think, on early literacy, and we will see a lot more of it this year, again, thanks to the work of the State Board and OSSI's interventions in this regard.
Okay, thank you. Can you just explain what DIBELS measures, or assesses, because we use so many acronyms, just a little bit of what does that mean when you say DIBELS assessments?
The DIBELS assessment, has been a long time since I was in a room where it was happening, but the DIBELS assessment is an assessment where teachers engage directly with the little people in their room to understand their basic phonemic awareness.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to share that. One of the things we've heard about is that there have been a long time to hire candidates in DCPS, and we've lost candidates because of that. So we might see on kind of a dashboard of teacher vacancies that it's a teacher in the pipeline, but because of the time it's taking, people are going elsewhere, and candidates are, schools are losing out, especially those east of the river. What are we going to do about that? And so that we can not lose good quality candidates, and our children can have someone in front of them that's highly qualified and effective.
I think it's a good question. I would defer to the principals, who I think may be joining you here, about whether or not that is actually a problem or not. I mean, I know from my own experience and research in the area of teacher hiring, the earlier you hire the teachers, the better off everyone is. Meaning, you've got someone in place, you're more likely to have a candidate who you have more, you've selected from a pool in a way that you're more satisfied with. And so the teacher hiring season for a school year typically begins the fall beforehand. I mean, that's the kind of truism. DCPS starts its hiring process in terms of its candidate outreach and pool building in October for the following school year, and then moves through it. So I'd be interested to hear from some of the principals about whether that is actually a challenge. And certainly if it's a challenge in specific parts of the city, then that is something we'd want to absolutely address.
Okay. Going back to school boundaries and master facility plan, will a racial equity lens be applied to that in terms of programming? What are going to be some of the factors that, and the city has made a commitment to be an anti-racist city. So how is that going to play, that particular commitment, into what we see through the master facilities plan and the school boundaries?
Well, in the first instance, I would say absolutely both of those studies will seek to, understand and shine a light on what the experiences are of different populations of students. Certainly students as categorized by race are African-American, are Black students, Hispanic and Latino students, white students, and others. I think we will have this will help us understand, for example, which populations of students are having to travel the farthest to get to schools that they are choosing to attend. Which populations of students are in schools with feeder patterns that have access to the certain kinds of programs, for example, like you were talking about earlier. And the recommendations that come out will really be working to address wherever it seems like there is racial injustice or racial inequality. This is also going to be true as we look at students who are low income, students who are furthest from opportunity, students who are furthest behind. What is their experience of our facilities? What is their experience of access through boundaries and feeder patterns? And are there any things we should be doing differently to try to ensure that we do have a more racially just and equitable system? So it's my full intent, it's our intent to ensure that those questions are asked and answered through the process of the studies. Again, working fully with community and with communities on those questions.
So Deputy Mayor, we're almost at time and we appreciate it. I wanted to get some of those questions out of the way. There are so many questions in the chat, by the way. So please, can you make a commitment to come back to us maybe later on in the school year and talk with us again, because the questions are excellent. And I'm sure we're going to want to hear more about the progress that's being made. But I want to shift, and I didn't want to start here. Yesterday, East of the River was a tough day for us. We had some really tragic events at our schools. We are all heartbroken to hear about what happened at schools and around schools. What is your office thinking about in response to this, and how are you going to approach this? This is not the way anyone wants to start a school year. It really it dampens everyone's spirit. It makes everyone brace for, oh my gosh, what is this year going to be like if we're starting like this? Can you talk a little bit about what you're thinking on that issue?
Yeah, and Dr. Dean, I want to share that this has been something I think we've all been very, very focused on. I know it's consumed a lot of my thoughts. I too was heartbroken yesterday morning. I've certainly spoken to the school communities. I mean, part of my job is to ensure school communities get what they need in response to the tragic events, but also to try to work with colleagues here and across the city and figuring out how we can be more preventative, how we can work to ensure not just that we respond when a tragedy happens, but how can we work to make sure tragedies like the shootings that occurred yesterday morning actually don't happen in the first place. I am confident that some of the work that we've started is the right work. So our Safe Passage, Safe Blocks work, which basically engages community-based organizations to put trusted adults on the street and to work in collaboration with schools, I think is the right work. It's not clear we're doing enough of it. I had a good conversation earlier with Representative Thompson, who offered some, I think, really good advice about the need for potential expansion of some of this work, but also collaboration across different agencies and entities doing it. I've spoken to a dozen school leaders about this over the past day, and I hear very similar messages from them, which include the need for better coordination and communication among and between city agencies like MPD and school communities. But very importantly, we've also introduced lots of violence interruption programs and violence interrupters and safe passage workers, some of whom are managed by the same CBOs and some of whom are managed by different CBOs who also don't communicate that effectively with each other yet. And so I'm talking to my counterpart in Public Safety and Justice, Deputy Mayor Chris Gelhardt, about quickly doing a convening amongst some city leaders, CBO leaders, community members to talk about work in standing up again the neighborhood clusters that we used to have that actually allowed forums for the kind of communication that at least the school leaders are saying will be a good first step between violence interruption groups, safe passage workers, MPD, WMATA Transit Police, the school communities themselves. And I think it's within those fora that we'll also be able to identify the gaps. So for example, at IDEA Public Charter School yesterday morning, there were 4 safe passage workers staffed, and they're there from 7:15 to 9:15 in the morning because that's what they've worked out with the school. The horrible events occurred after that time period. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we there at the right times? Do we have the right number of people? Are we coordinating between the security workers in the school and the safe passage workers who may be outside of it with MPD and so on? And so those are some of the really, really big and very tough questions we've got to tackle together. And Representative Thompson, you had great thoughts earlier today. I look forward to continuing to talk with you. Dr. Dean, anyone on this call or you yourself or this forum, if you've got things that we should be doing, I would love to hear about them so that we can begin to sort of implement more broader systematic solutions to this problem, which does not look like it's going away, unfortunately, anytime soon.
So we had some pretty extreme incidents, but across yesterday and some other schools, there were some other less, I won't say violent because they were violent, but there were some pretty significant fights at some schools across the city also. So how are we going to handle that? I mean, kids, and many of them have not been in space together. They're reacclimating. We know that we have a gun proliferation problem in the city. We know that they say it's about 250 people who are responsible for most of this gun activity and violence. How are we going to address some of those, not necessarily related to guns, but some of the really big fights that we experienced yesterday in school, and really address how we're bringing kids back in proximity to each other, how we're dealing with conflict resolution and those types of things, and how we have kind of a rapid response when we see something happening or we hear about something happening and it ends up working itself out in a not great way at the schoolhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both the suggestions implied in your question and the question itself. I mean, as you know, Dr. Dean, schools currently do lots of work around conflict resolution, skill building, positive behavioral intervention supports, and other things. It's clear that that work, while extremely important, needs to be expanded in some ways or done in new ways or done differently. We've got the ONES Leadership Academies that sort of Anacostia is being stood up in new schools. That is a program in the school that is designed specifically to build conflict resolution skills and also to work with students who may need those supports the most. So we will see if that program itself actually has a positive effect, which we have high hopes that it will. The Safe Passage, Safe Blocks program, which has hired 200 adults, we're funding it at over $5 million a year, has a component, the idea that those Safe Passage workers will actually work in partnership with schools and go into the school buildings and engage in mediation and conflict resolution skill building as well. But I suspect that what we're doing there is probably not yet enough and maybe inconsistent. In terms of the rapid response, again, that's what I heard from so many school leaders over the course of the day, which is we actually need better systems so that we can actually, when we know something's going to happen, we can communicate that quickly and get all of us working on the same page and not, not reacting or responding just based on what we've seen, but with a deeper understanding of something that may occur, and also trying to get the folks who have the best relationships with the young people in place. We've got a problem with the drawdown of the SROs. I don't know how else to say it. There's lots of public debate and discussion about that, but when I talk to school leaders, they're deeply concerned about the fact that there were these MPD officers who knew the kids in their building and could actually intervene effectively and work with them and would do it in an even-handed way. And the drawdown of those specific officers, I think, is gonna be hurtful to our system overall. So that's something we've got to think about and work on. Like, what, if that drawdown continues or is confirmed, like how do we fill in the gap there to ensure that we've got that as part of our overall response system. So I think there's a lot of work that all of us have to do on this, and that that's just incumbent on us to do it.
Well, like I said, we're at the, we've extended our time past the time we asked you to be here, so thank you very much. There are so many issues. I did not get to them all. I apologize to anyone who I didn't get to ask your question. Again, Deputy Mayor, we will ask that you come back later in the year. I do want you to know that at the end of last year, Ward 7 Ed Council actually had a conversation with the MPD assistant chief over SROs. We had the DPS person over school safety. We had those who are in support of reduction of SROs, those who were not in support of that, those who participate in kind of safe passage and violence interrupter kind of activities. And so we have that discussion. If you want to see it, we'll share with you, because so you can just see the robustness of that conversation, because we were concerned about, was there a coordinated plan going into this year? And we wanted to raise that issue last year. So hope if you're interested, we'll forward that recording to you. With that being said, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for answering our questions. And again, please let us know how we can get our community engaged in all the various activities, task force committees, thinking groups that you have talked about, and how you can, how we can get information back to you about what Ward 7 residents are thinking and feeling and wanting on those very important issues. Okay.
Thanks so much, Dr. Dean. I enjoyed the discussion as always, and we will keep in close touch. And yes, I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Okay. We appreciate you. I don't want to be remiss without just really saying we have some new principals in Ward 7. We wanted to have them introduce themselves, tell what school they're with, and let them and invite them and their parents and their staffs and their students to come to our meetings, to share with us what's going on, to keep us abreast and informed, so that we can be your best allies and advocates in the work that you do every day. So I know I saw Eastern Senior High's new principal, so I'm going to start there. And if there are other principals who also joined us after Mr. Miller has spoken, please come off mute and introduce yourself and tell us a little about what's going on in your world.
Thanks, Dr. Dean. I'm so glad to be here meeting with you guys, such great supporters and advocates for our students, our schools, and our communities. Really appreciate the invite tonight. We're off to a good start at Eastern. My name's Steve Miller. I'm the new principal at Eastern. And we're off to a great start this year. It's been a really good feeling throughout the building. We've been focused on connecting with our staff and students, and just kind of building relationships at this point of the year and getting our routines in place. So it's still a bit early, but we're excited about the prospects for this year and to be back. And I'm excited and honored to be leading Eastern.
Well, thank you, Mr. Miller, for coming and talking to us. When I met you at the community walk, or the when earlier this summer, we got to walk around the community together, got to talk about the experiences that Eastern High School students were having. And so again, at that time, I said, please keep us informed. Let us know how we can support our newest high school to Ward 7, which is Eastern. So we're happy to invite you to the Ward 7 family. And thank you for coming. And do you have any final comments you want to say, what you're hoping to accomplish this year? What's your one big goal? Or is it just to make it through the first year?
Well, I'd be lying if I said I'm not going to be learning a lot this year. First year principals always do. I did challenge the staff to do 4 things this year that I can share with you. And the first is what we're doing right now. We're building connections with kids. That's really the foundation of everything that we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. Next, we're going to be talking about engaging kids in both in the academic work and also the social emotional work that we have been talking about throughout the evening. Next, we're going to challenge our students, really bring the rigor. I think it's a big part of being an anti-racist school is to bring rigorous college IB coursework to our Ward 7 students. And so then lastly, support our students, support them as we challenge them, and make sure we're wrapping our arms around our kids and helping them achieve great things. So those are really the four big things I challenge the staff to do. That's what I'm going to be committed to this year. But I would be lying again if I'm not going to be learning quite a lot this year. And I think we can do better than survive. I hope to be thriving by the end of the year, but it's going to be a big learning curve for sure.
No problem. So thank you. So tell us a little bit about the program at Eastern. You said IB. So can you tell us about what type of programming you have at Eastern so people can get more familiar with it?
Absolutely. So the IB stands for the International Baccalaureate Program. We are the only comprehensive high school in DCPS that offers the IB program. It's a college preparatory program. And we just, prior to this year, it had been a 2-year program. It's called the Diploma Program with the IB. And we were fortunate enough to my predecessor added the middle years program, which covers 9th and 10th grade as well for this year. So we're now going to be IB for all. Every student will be taking IB courses at Eastern. And at some point, the rigorous college preparatory program. It's a little different from the AP, the advanced placement program, where it's much more connected with kind of global focus, bringing communities together, promoting intercommunity understanding, which I think is really ripe for Eastern and for a lot of DCPS schools at this time.
Okay, well, thank you. Again, you're welcome to come back. Please update us. Please keep us in the loop. If you have any announcements you want to make, please send them to our Ward 7 Education Council email address so that we can make sure that they get out to the community. We have quite an extensive listserv. So thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We also have new principals at Minor, at Kelly Miller, and at JC Knowles. Are any of those principals on? Just making sure. A couple of them had said they were coming. Okay. Not yet. I don't see them. Okay, well, we will continue to invite them back and have them feature. Maybe we'll make this a regular segment where we just have a few minutes where we hear from a principal in Ward 7 and they just tell us a little bit about what's going on in their school and their school programming, and we can share just what are the great things that are happening in Ward 7 schools. With that being said, I just want to close out the meeting. First of all, let me go back to Principal Christy Edwards. I am so disappointed I was not able to attend the grand opening. I was so excited, wanted to be there. I am actually not in town. I am back home in Michigan, but I can't wait to see it, and congratulations. And I'm really disappointed that I was not there today to be able to see the wonderful opening of school today. With that, I want to invite everyone to come. Our next meeting will be October, let me get the exact date. October 6th. At that meeting, we will have Chancellor Farabee from DCPS. We will also have Superintendent Grant from OSSI. They will be here to talk to us about what's going on, and we'll have opportunity to interact with them, ask them questions, find out what are their initiative goals and focus for the year. We'll also be having our annual report at that meeting, where we'll talk about what we accomplished last year and really really kind of a recap of what we did last year. So we ask that you sign up to attend next month's meeting, bring someone with you, tell all the parent groups, tell all the community groups, tell all the school groups that we are back in session. I know people are not in the mindset of being back into school, but we are here, we're ready, and we're willing, and we're ready to get started and to support our schools, our students, our community, our families, and our teachers, our administrators, everyone. We're just here to be a part of making Ward 7 schools work for everyone. With that being said, I want to encourage each and every one of you to sign up for a committee, the Budget and Finance Committee, the Programs Committee, the Communication Outreach Committee, the Legislative Committee, and the Membership Committee. We've already received a list of the Committee of the Whole from DC Council when they're going to have hearings, so we'll begin the process of testifying at hearings. We have a lot to do. You saw and heard from Deputy Mayor Kihn of all the initiatives this year and all the conversations that are going to be happening. We need you. We want you to participate, join a committee, email me if you're interested in chairing or participating on a committee at marlamdeanward7@gmail.com. Please, again, email me at marlamdeanward7@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to chair or participate in a committee, or if there's some way you want to help. We really need everyone fully engaged. This is an important year. You heard it. We're going to be talking about facilities. We're going to be talking about school boundaries. We need to be geared up and ready to go. So that's my call and my plea for everyone to participate. Are there any announcements that anyone would like to make at this time?
I have an announcement. It's a joyous one. We have two new State Board of Education student representatives. So for those who don't know, we have 4 positions on the state board that are student reps. And we used to have 2, we now have 4. 2 seats are reserved for young people east of the river. Why? Because y'all know we have the most kids. And this year, those two of the 4 reps are Ward 7 students. One is a Ward 7 student who attends Woodson, so double Ward 7, and the other is a Ward 7 student who attends Richard Wright Public Charter School. Actually, neither one of those schools are new to having reps on the board, but this is the first time we've ever had like 2 student reps on the board. So we're working towards East of the River quorum, it seems like, on the board. And so I'm just happy to share that they will have their first session with us in person, again at our working session. And if you know young people who might be interested in like filling out this opportunity for next year, we accept students to our student advisory committee all year round. And we actually like use our student advisory committee. Our student reps run it. It's a great way for us to get youth voice in our policy, but also for them to just, talk with other decision makers. They meet with other education leaders. And so I really want to increase the number of students who are from Ward 7 who have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And we're excited to hear about the increased representation from Ward 7 students interacting with our state board. So thank you. We're really excited. Sharona, I see your hand. You want to give us some updates?
Sure. Really quickly, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharona Robinson, and I'm actually here in a new position as DCPS's Manager of Community Engagement and Affairs in the Office of Engagement and Partnerships at DC Public Schools. And we are hiring for my previous position. So if you know of anyone, the position will close pretty much over the weekend. So if you know of someone who is interested in engaging with families, I am not looking for a me, if you will. The world already has one Sharona, we don't need another. But just someone who is very knowledgeable about Washington, DC, its school communities, neighborhoods, et cetera, who can, you know, just navigate DC public schools, DC government, community-based organizations, et cetera, and just who really care about families, student outcomes, and helping us to become more of a whole child anti-racist school district. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing is we just finished day 4 of the first week of school. Today was the first day for our pre-K3 and pre-K4 students. So I also was really happy to be at Randall Highlands this morning as a former old Randall Highlands parent. My oldest daughter, who's 25, attended that school, and it looked nothing like what it looks like today. So really excited for Principal Edwards, her staff, her families, and just the residents who will have access to this amazing opportunity for their infants who can, you know, pretty much look forward to going to Randall. And the last thing I'll say is, if families have not, please encourage them to get their kids properly immunized. I know there's been a lot of conversations about vaccinations and immunizations. Yes, they are 2 different things, but we do want to ensure that students are safe at school. I'm happy to put the link in the chat again for more of that information. There are about 70 clinics around the city where families can go and get those immunizations, physicals, things like that, so that their children can be ready for school. As we know, we are closing out the summer and preparing for the Labor Day holiday. And that's pretty much all I have. And I'll add my information to the chat again. Really excited to be here. Congratulations again, Principal Miller. Welcome to Ward 7. And thank you, Marla, as always, for a great meeting.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Yay for the promotion. We're so excited for you. And you may not be looking for another you, but the community is looking for maybe not another you, because it's only one, you're one of a kind, but you're everywhere. You're always accessible. You're answering questions. You're committed. I don't know how you do it, but we're looking for somebody who has some of those attributes. So we want to thank you for all you've done. And we're glad that the DCPS has recognized, because I've been waiting for a long time for you to have a promotion. I was wondering when it was going to happen. Okay, so I'm very happy that it has happened. So excellent. Thank you all. We appreciate everyone for coming. And any other announcements? I see a few more hands, so please. Or are these hands up from a later point? Going once, going twice. Any more announcements?
Dr. Dan, I have a quick question. Well, a statement.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. And this is all the leaders of Ward 7. I'm happy Ms. Sharona brought up the vaccination. And we're going to have Dr. Furby and another person from Aussie next month. So maybe it's good for us to have questions available for them to see what is the plan, and also the backup plan for the vaccination, because I'm not for sure if everybody aware that Congress did step in and announce to cease the vaccination in DC, and the mayor did agree on it. But however, they still saying that the children have to be vaccinated now at a later time, I believe, which is January. But maybe we can have some questions available for them when they come on next month. So we can all be in tune of what's going on, for the parents who don't mind vaccinating their kids and for the parents who do not want to vaccinate their kids for whatever reason.
So thank you. So again, you can always call or email me with your questions in advance, but I do try and heavily monitor the chat to try and hit on questions. But you can bet the vaccinations will be a question that we will be exploring when the chancellor comes next month. Okay, but there are other questions, please let us know. So we appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Well,
Marla, do you mind if I respond to Ms. Miller for a second?
please.
Regarding those vaccinations? So two things. One, in terms of DC government employees, there actually was a lawsuit that was filed around employees who were separated from DC government, who, refused to get the COVID vaccine. So as of right now, those people have to be hired back. So, essentially the mayor has to hire them back. They have to be paid, for monies that they would have earned if they were at work. But I will say this, in terms of COVID vaccines, like a lot of those things, so for 12 and over, those things are required for students, but any student under that age is not necessarily required. And in terms of the immunizations, and notice I'm saying vaccinations versus immunizations. So the immunizations are the ones that we've been doing since, the beginning of time. So chickenpox, polio, measles, mumps, all of those things. So those things are still required. However, as a family, if you are opting to not have those things, you can still have your doctor to fill out a medical exemption. So those forms are.
Wait a minute, Sharon, I think we lost you for a second. So I'm going to give it a moment to catch back up with you, hopefully. Oh, I think we really did lose you. Wait a minute, I think you're coming back online.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying really quickly, in terms of the families who want to opt out of any of those immunizations, you are welcome to do so by having your doctor to fill out a medical exemption for you to do that. And you can also do a religious exemption as well. But ideally, if that form is not on file, your child will remain non-compliant. So the form has to be done every year.
Okay.
So I do, no problem. I do understand that families don't want that.
Right. And just find a strategy for more parents to be aware and to know about it at an early time before, maybe before Thanksgiving, because, we're pushing time with these deadlines, but before Thanksgiving to do some type of, that's what I was saying for, maybe we can strategize something and send it to you all and make sure we on the same page so the babies will not have to miss school. That's all.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So again, we have a Ward 7 Ed Council email. You have my email, Sharona's email. If you want to send us information, suggestions on, I know Eboni-Rose Thompson is also extremely available too. If you want to send any of us information on some suggestions, we will forward it to other people and make sure that everybody's included and here's your suggestions. So thank you. I do think there is so many conversations around vaccinations versus immunizations versus COVID specifically, that it is getting lost in the sauce. So when you hear someone talking about the lawsuit or the federal government stepping in and saying that wasn't really around children, that was around employees, but when you hear it, you're not quite sure. So people are hearing a lot of messages and all of them are getting jumbled. So there has to be a way to cut through so people can get the information they need so the children can be in school. So we welcome feedback and we welcome everyone to participate to help us to figure out how we can play a better and stronger role in all of these community conversations. We are at time. I am a minute over. So I want to say thank you for coming to our first meeting. We look forward to seeing you. Have a good Labor Day, and we'll see you in 30 days.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.